I'd like you all to imagine living in a place that brims with impossibility. It's impossible for you to live without fear. It's impossible for you to be who you are, to be with who you love. It's impossible for you to speak up, to think freely, to attain justice. This is the kind of place I come from, the Arab world, a region that has for so long been trapped in a state of impossibility that poisons all aspects of life. It's against this very backdrop that my team and I decided to start a magazine about possibilities. We wanted to use narratives of possibility to counter highly entrenched narratives of impossibility. You see, narratives are an extremely powerful tool. On a very basic level, they tell us about the world and how it works. They also tell us about ourselves. They help us discover and understand who we are, where we come from, to where we belong. They forge our identity and they position us in the world. They give us a space to imagine. They give us clues, and they shape our perspectives. In the past, narratives have changed the course of histories. Nations rose and fell because of them. Revolutions took off because of them. And today, our world continues to ebb and flow because of tightly constructed narratives that find their way into our subconscious and imagination. So we started the Outpost in 2012 when the Arab world was going through its inspiring uprisings. And we wanted to use narratives of possibility to ride on the waves of change that were going on at the time. But in order to do so, we knew that we had to lead unapologetically with a narrative of possibility. That it's possible to liberate ourselves. That it's possible to empower women and the weak and the marginalized. It's possible to counter violence, rape, homophobia, and transphobia. It's possible to correct our education, to correct our legal system, and to fight corruption. It's possible to free Palestine. It's possible to grow in a place where the basic gears for growth are almost non-existent. It's possible to heal a broken nation, a broken system, or even a broken heart. It's possible to challenge the impossible, and better yet, it's possible to dig enough holes in a system that feeds on impossibility that in the long run we would force it to reinvent itself. So in order to do that, which is to achieve our mission, which is ultimately to help to use narratives of possibility to help and ignite the long-awaited and much-needed socio-cultural renaissance in the Arab world, our narratives had to do three things. The first thing that our narratives have to do is to open our eyes, because awareness is the first step to create change. Awareness about our history, our present, and the challenges we face on our way to our future. About our rights, our wrongs, and our missed opportunities. Awareness about the place we inhabit, what makes it special, and what makes it vulnerable. Awareness about how our world is changing, the heroes leading that change and the enemies blocking it. In our Arab world, there are so many heroes at the forefront of the new Arab awakening, but there are also so many enemies trying to put obstacles in between us and our possibilities. You see them, for example, working on widening the divide between the Arabs. It's a policy intended to keep us weak and disconnected and preventing us from coming together to create this powerful force of positive change. So we felt that we needed to address this issue in the magazine. We needed to open our eyes to this important issue because as the world is becoming more open, we as Arabs are becoming more closed. And we decided to zone in on this from a rail point of view. So we looked at the different railways that were ever laid on an Arab land, and the ones that are currently being built, and the ones that are proposed for the future. And we laid them over the map of the Arab region and connected them with the border. And we came up with this, which is a region that is intricately connected and shares its blood veins, if you will. You can have breakfast in Gaza and dinner in Beirut. Books are written in Cairo. They're printed in Beirut and read in Baghdad. Food is grown in Sudan and exported to the rest of the region. Yes, it's an ideal world, a world that only lives in our fiction and our dreams. But opening our eyes to it is instrumental in our quest to tear down the walls between us. The second thing our narratives have to do is to document how our region is changing and to help us make sense of the shifts that are going on in the region or in the world. There is a silent revolution going on at the moment in the different Arab capitals, a revolution of the mind, of the body, and the spirit, a revolution being undertaken by fearless young Arabs who are so adamant and insistent about changing their world to the better. Women are fighting harassment in Egypt, Lebanon, Palestine, Sudan, and elsewhere. Knowledge is being created and disseminated by people who have so much to say, people who have been silenced, ignored, and jailed for years and years. Gender identity and sexual liberation are exploding in an amazing way. Alternative political spaces are being created in oppressive, dictatorial states. We are refusing to consume everything that the media is telling us about life, work, romance, family, and politics, resenting institutions of authority and power, and calling for empowerment, accountability, and inclusion. We are protesting against state violence, gender violence, and school violence, and all sorts of brutality that mark our body and our minds. This is a major force, and we are here to ensure that it doesn't only go unnoticed, but that we can help people make sense of it and make them realize that they can also become part of this force. For our second issue, we set out to look for all these young people who are changing or who are writing the modern history of the Arab world. And throughout our research, we noticed an interesting pattern. All these people live and produce excellent work in a place where the basic infrastructure for living and producing excellent work is almost non-existent. And it was so interesting to us to the extent that we decided to call them world makers, because despite all the obstacles these people face in their lives, be it unemployment, a rotten political and legal structure, inaccessibility to funds, and not to mention all the daily power cuts and water cuts and traffic jams, these people are doing everything they can, with everything they can, to create better worlds. And then we thought, what if all those world makers we're profiling in the issue are connected somehow? What would the impact be like? So we embarked on, dare I say, the suicidal mission to find connections between all those world makers profiled. And this goes to say that if one world maker is trying to make his or her world better, and they're connected to another world maker that's trying to make his or her world better, then the Arab world is going to become a better place, because it's inhabited by all these world makers who are collectively trying to create better worlds. The third role of our narratives is to inspire. They need to inspire either thought or action that would eventually help in crippling the state of impossibility. In fact, we have an entire section in the magazine for this, which we call What Could Happen. One experiment in what could happen was the perfumed garden. We looked at the different Arab cities and realized that there's no one city that's actually capable of catering to our dreams. So what we did is we created this whole new city that takes the best parts of different Arab cities and stitches them together to create this utopia, which we as young Arabs can live in, can dream in, and can make our dreams come true. Then we took this a step further by commissioning a young author to write a novel that takes place in this city. The novel was inserted as a supplement in our first issue and used all the people we profiled and interviewed in that issue as characters in the novel. The perfumed garden then put these people in fictional contact with each other or in imagined scenarios where they could flourish. But by doing so, we challenged the rules of geography and expressed our view of a better world, of a new Arab world, in a different voice. You see, when we first started this magazine, this media platform, so many people were questioning our mission. And to be honest, we even had our self-doubts. I mean, how far can a story go in creating or intangibly creating change in the real world? But we stuck to our mission and kept on publishing. And then something slowly started to happen. We started getting messages from all those people telling us about how our narratives are inspiring them in different ways. Like this girl from Egypt, Shireen, who told us about how we inspired her to start her own literary publication in Cairo. And the media was picking us up. Even like The Guardian named us as a successor to The Economist, which was like, whoa, like completely out of this world, having started this venture with almost zero resources and with a team that had almost zero experience in media and publishing. And then suddenly it felt that after so much hard work that this mountain has started to move. And it was so interesting for us to the extent that it inspired the theme of our latest issue. We wanted to explore how far can a story go in tangibly changing the world. So we started by tracing the root of our narratives to understand what they say about us and how we can use them to move forward. And what we realized is that so much of our stories, so much of our narratives that us as young Arabs tell the world about us are still pretty much stuck in the past. They're stories about defeat, trauma, wars, and disappointment. We came to this realization that in order to move to a better future, we need to start by telling better stories. And indeed, if you look at the Arab world today, there are so many young people who are trying to create and tell better stories. Despite all this, despite that these people are becoming aware and conscious of the need to start telling better stories, we still lack a powerful collective narrative that could help us in channeling those stories into a place that is both productive and effective. In other words, we lack a mythology. And mythologies are important because they unite people. They provide a sense of belonging, and they capture the imagination of a certain group of people and offer a hope for, or at least a glimpse of a better future. But the thing about mythologies is that they need to have a hero. Jesus Christ, Gandhi, Superman, the list goes on. So the question was, if we as young Arabs were to have a mythology, a unifying narrative against the narrative of helplessness and hopelessness and disconnection, against the narrative of impossibility, who would be our hero? And after so much thinking, the answer came crashing down on us. It's us. We are the heroes of our own stories. And then the issue, which started as an exploration of our own narratives, ended up becoming a presentation of our new hero. We invented a radio station because we felt that radio is a perfect medium to act as a collective voice for certain communities and helps those communities in pushing their stories out to the world. So we created this Radio Midan, and Midan in Arabic means the public square where the revolution happens. And in order to build up our case, we really invented and built this radio's universe to the extent that part of the story became an interview between the Outpost and Radio Midan's fictitious programming director. But throughout the story, we see how such an entity could go all the way in challenging and rewiring all the social, cultural, and political constructs in the place we inhabit. How such a medium can cross border after border, sweeping both the illiterate and the elite to their feet, with its rallying rise against colonialism, corruption, injustice. We realized that we can actually create something that will become our collective new voice, the beating heart of millions of young Arabs, the soundtrack of our generation, the mouthpiece of our revolution, our new hero. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the power of this? We released the issue and we started getting so many emails and calls from people asking us about this radio station. Many people thought that it was real and they wanted to be involved. The best was from a friend of mine who called me up a few weeks ago saying that he's working on this project with few Europeans and that the Europeans were fascinated by the radio, that they wanted to collaborate with it. And there was like, dude, it's completely fictitious. But it was great. It was great because it was a great testament to the validity of this possibility, that if we are youth without heroes, this is how we can become each other's heroes. As I said, the first step of change is awareness. The first step of awareness is a story. The first step is a story, big or small. I tell you your story, you tell me mine. Radio Midan is all our stories, together becoming something more powerful. It is a great testament to the validity of the possibility that the more we are aware and conscious of our own narratives and their role in our revolution, the more we continue to create better stories that can help us imagine a better future. And the more we stop asking for permissions to narrate our stories and seek out all possible channels to put our stories out in the world, the closer we are to the new Arab world we are all dreaming of. Thank you.